of young people here from around the world who've come very long distances to hear us talk, but we also want to hear you talk. So certainly as we go forward, let's make sure that we're keeping the conversation up between us all. Now I see some of the panelists coming in and some more of our youth. So give us about 5 minutes and we should begin once again. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So just to introduce myself, I was earlier the project coordinator of Youth Assembly about a year and a half ago with Patrick Sharada, and I worked with FAF and the United Nations at that time, the Youth Assembly. And that's how Patrick has invited me to host this high-level panel. And then I'm here on his behalf and on FAF's behalf and all the work that we did in the United Nations in the past. As a session host on behalf of FAF and the Youth Assembly, I'd like to introduce you to two very high-profile personalities here. I call it high-profile because this is a high-level panel of innovators, and if you just sum up this whole panel discussion of this afternoon, about 2.5 hours or so, we could probably sum it up in 2 words: innovation and partnerships. And so just keep this in the back of your mind, that these are the 2 words that are going to drive this. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce you to this great personality on my right, Amir Dossal. A couple of introductory remarks about him. It's great to know that he's a founder and chairman of the Global Partnerships Forum that bridges the gap between the United Nations and so many NGOs and partnerships that we have. An international platform to address economic and social challenges through innovative partnerships. He's also the coordinator of Pearl Initiative, a CEO-led program. Amir is a 25-year veteran of the United Nations, and prior to creating the Global Partnerships, he was the executive director of the UN Office for Partnerships and served as the UN's chief liaison for partnerships and a focal point for the partnership with media mogul Ted Turner. And he's the one who managed about $1 billion gift to the United Nations, and that worked out to be a great philanthropic effort. He has developed numerous partnerships and secured sizable social investments from big names like Coca-Cola and Rockefeller Foundation, Rotary Cross, and he has really built in across all sectors, including health, education, environment, peace, security, and human rights. In 2010, he received the Humanitarian Award from the United Nations Association New York for his accomplishment in partnership to end poverty and world hunger. December 2010, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco appointed him as Ambassador for Peace and Sport. Just to give you a background, 25 years ago, what he did was he is a chartered accountant, and he trained with Deloitte, Haskins and Sells, London in 1975. So you can see that he's moved in from private sector, great experience, to global partnerships. And all over to Amir, I'd like to also, on behalf of FAF and the Youth Assembly, introduce Mr. Maher Nasser. And we are very proud and privileged and very happy to have you on board here. All over to Amir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. And I apologize, I paid Sebastian a lot of money to say what he did about me. First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you. This is really exciting. As you know so well, today's problems and challenges which exist can never be solved alone. We need to find creative ways to address them. And I'm delighted that Friendship Ambassadors Foundation, under the leadership of Patrick Sharada, is doing great work to bring you people together. And our session this afternoon will really only focus on results and outcomes. And what we want to do is to be able to share with you some of the ideas of the creative people who will be on the panel. I'm not the creative one, I'm just following the instructions what I've given. And the idea is that you take those and replicate them. So, before we go into the panel, as Sebastian said, we are privileged and honored to have the Director of the Outreach Division of the United Nations Department of Public Information. And I'll tell you something, I spent 25 years at the UN, he's beaten me to it. He's exceeded the 25 years. And we are so privileged to have him because the leadership role the UN plays, the outreach effort, comes out of his office. The fact that you're here is as a result of the commitment and dedication to create that, what I call multi-stakeholder bond and partnership with people like yourselves. And we always remind ourselves that we are here to think for you. We are here because we are caretakers and we want to make sure young people benefit from a better world. We have an obligation to leave the planet in a better shape than we found it. And on that note, I warmly welcome Mr. Maher Nasser. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. Good afternoon and welcome to the United Nations. I would like to thank the organizers, endorsers, supporters of the Youth Assembly at the United Nations, particularly the Friendship Ambassadors Foundation, for creating the opportunity for you to meet and discuss issues of great importance to you and your own future. I would also like to welcome the distinguished panelists who will be joining us this afternoon to talk about moving from talk to action, and then about the MDGs and you. Are we there yet? Not the movie. Thank you, Amir, for leading this session and for inviting me to give introductory remarks on the UN's leadership vision for youth. Today's generation of youth is the largest the world has ever known. Worldwide, it is estimated that there are 1.21 billion youth, and it is projected that this number will continue to grow until 2065. While this offers an unprecedented opportunity for innovation and development, one should not forget that many young people, many of whom are highly educated, feel disenfranchised from the political, social, and development processes in their own countries, and are therefore distrustful of institutions and leaders. Prospects are even dimmer for marginalized youth living in disadvantaged conditions, and are therefore particularly vulnerable to being recruited and victimized by criminal and terrorist groups. The vast majority of youth living in developing countries, and about half, 600 million, live in countries affected by conflict and lack access to education, vocational training, and employment opportunities. The sizable youth population in developing countries, from what is referred to as the youth bulge, which occurs when 20% or more of a nation's population is between the ages of 15 to 24. In the occupied Palestinian territory, where I come from, young adults aged 15 to 29 years old make up roughly 28% of the population, and this is likely to be maintained for the next 2 decades. And this is also holds true for many countries, or several countries in the region. Recognizing the urgency and importance of addressing youth issues, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has made working with and for young people a priority of his 5-year action agenda. Secretary General Ban has called on the UN system to deepen and scale up the youth focus of existing and future programs, and to give special attention to employment, entrepreneurship, political inclusion, citizenship, and protection of rights, and finally, education, including on sexual and reproductive health. In 2011, a high-level meeting of the General Assembly on Youth was held here at UN headquarters, and in the outcome document adopted the high-level meeting, Member States requested the Secretary General to prepare a comprehensive report that evaluates the achievements and shortcomings of ongoing UN programs related to youth, and to make concrete recommendations on how to improve the UN programs and structures related to youth. Member States also requested recommendations on how to more effectively address the challenges hindering the development and participation of youth. This report will be submitted to the Commission for Social Development, CSD, in February 2013, i.e. next month. To advance the UN's agenda on youth, the UN system has drafted a system-wide action plan on youth, which is in the process of being approved. The plan would create a UN Youth Volunteers program and expand existing youth volunteering initiatives under the umbrella of UN volunteers. The Secretary General has also recently appointed his first ever envoy on youth, Ahmed Al-Hindawi from Jordan, who will work to address the needs of youth, is the youngest envoy ever to be appointed by UN Secretary General. Despite his young age, he brings a wealth of experience to this position. It is worth noting that Ahmed started participating in the World Youth Assembly in 2007. Then he came back to the Assembly as a representative of the Save the Children, and later as a representative of the League of Arab States, leading a group of young men and women who were active in the Arab Spring. Ahmed has asked that we convey something on his behalf, since he has not yet joined us. He will start his work here on the 15th of February. And I quote, "What could be a better message of hope and inspiration than the fact that young people are acknowledged by the UN as a full partner in designing, implementing, and evaluating the policies and programs affecting their lives. I was once sitting in the same setting as you, not sure if I can influence policies. The Secretary General and the UN send a clear message with my appointment that all youth can contribute and nothing for youth should be done without youth involvement." End of quote. The System-Wide Action Plan, let me call it SWAP, and in the UN we use a lot of these acronyms. The SWAP on youth that I referred to earlier was drafted by the UN Interagency Network on Youth Development. It aims to expand the focus on youth in existing programs across every UN agency, program, and fund. The Youth SWAP emphasizes the importance of expanding choices and enhancing human freedoms to ensure that youth live a long and healthy life, has access to an education and decent standards of living, and have opportunities to participate in the life of their community and to be included in the decision-making process on issues affecting their lives. It is important to stress that the development of the Youth System-Wide Action Plan and the appointment of the Secretary General Envoy on Youth are both grounded in mandates given to the United Nations system by member states in the World Programme of Action for Youth, which was adopted in 1995. Here is a brief summary of the UN's vision on each of the 5 priorities that I mentioned earlier. Employment and entrepreneurship. With regard to employment and entrepreneurship, the world is facing a monumental youth employment challenge. Of the estimated 200 million unemployed in 2012, nearly 40% were between the ages of 15 and 24 years old, i.e. youth, as defined by the UN. More youth are poor or unemployed than ever before. There is an urgent need to create 600 million jobs over the next decade to address this issue. The UN System-Wide Action Plan on Youth aims to strengthen UN programs that are involved in the promotion of decent work for youth and ensuring that there is gender equality in the work world as well. Furthermore, the System-Wide Action Plan also focuses on promoting entrepreneurship among young people, including youth-led enterprises. Second area, protection of rights. The action plan aims to encourage member states to take action to safeguard and promote the human rights of youth through the implementation of existing human rights instruments, as well as by identifying gaps in these instruments. Providing youth with information about their rights is also an important component of safeguarding those rights. Third, civic engagement. The focus on youth participation in decision-making processes at the political level is essential if we are to tap into the immense energy and potential of youth. In order to respond to the needs of young people and to guarantee that their basic human rights are recognized, young people's active and meaningful participation in their societies is very important. With limited opportunities to participate meaningfully in determining policies affecting youth, young men and women feel marginalized in their own communities. Therefore, the Youth Action Plan focuses on supporting the inclusion of youth at all levels, including here at the United Nations. Education, fourth area. Despite a global increase in the number of children enrolling in secondary education, the enrollment ration in low-income countries in 2010 was just 52%. This means that millions of young people enter the world of work without knowledge and skills they need to earn a decent living. Even in countries where enrollment is high, many drop out early. The Youth Action Plan attempts to address these issues by helping to enhance national education policies, programs, and curricula. By targeting initiatives that improve educational opportunities for marginalized youth populations and linking them with the world of work. Sexual and reproductive health education. Each year, there are at least 100 million cases of sexually transmitted infection among young people. In addition, there are around 16 million infants born to adolescent mothers. Although adolescents account for 11% of all births, a higher percentage of these births result in disabilities due to complications during pregnancy and childbirth. Infants born to adolescent mothers have a higher risk of dying during the first 2 years of their life. Although most governments have some type of sexual and reproductive health education programs in place, they are often weak or not implemented properly. The Youth System-Wide Action Plan acknowledges the importance of a national youth policy and the need to examine the barriers youth face to obtaining health services and highlighting the role that young people can play in protecting their own health. Engaging young people as advocates of their own rights to health is a key component of their human rights. I trust that in your discussions later on today and tomorrow, you will explore the issues I spoke about and others that you feel are important to your future. Do you feel that you are given enough space to participate in decisions made at the local, national, and international levels? Do you feel that your education has adequately prepared you to address the global challenges your generation will face? Do you feel prepared to participate in policy-making discussions on issues affecting youth? Do you feel engaged in the life of your community? Have we currently identified the most important issues affecting youth today, the 5 areas I mentioned? Does it make sense to you? If not, which one did we miss? Political involvement and a basic knowledge of political institutions are critical to preserving democracy. There are many studies that have shown that young people do not see participation in one's community as a necessary component of citizenship. Young people often talk of the importance of their personal rights, but not of the common good. And participation in public decision-making is usually limited to exercising the right to vote. It needs to be much more than that. Your participation in the World Youth Assembly indicates otherwise. Your presence here at the UN indicates that you have taken an active interest in participating in some way in making the world we share a better place for all. There is a famous quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who served on the Human Rights Commission that drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I think fits very well with the spirit of the conference this year. She said the following, and I quote, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, or she, I should add, the school or college he or she attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works or she. Such as are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world." We hope that you will be inspired by the UN's vision for youth to become an agent of change who participates in some way to support the action plan on youth. We also hope that you will be inspired by the example of Ahmed al-Hindawi, who just a short time ago was participating in this assembly and wondering whether he would ever have an opportunity to influence policies. Your actions do not have to be at the global level in order to make a difference. You can make important contributions right at home, in your own communities, and I wish you luck and hope to see you again at the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Maher, and I'm delighted you put some markers out there and some guidelines in terms of what the UN is doing, and this will hopefully serve as a benchmark for you to plan today, this afternoon, and tomorrow's discussion, and maybe come back with some concrete ideas. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our panelists for the next panel, which is moving from talk to action. And I'd like to start by inviting the moderator, Michael Skolnik. Michael, welcome. And once again, the session conversation is all about action, about results, and you'll hear some inspiring stories.
Hi all, welcome back from lunch. As you can see, Mr. Dossal has brought together, I think, the entire world of civil society. So we have a couple of very special extra guests who are not on the panel, but I wanted to take this moment as they're sitting down to just alert you. I'm sorry about those who went to the Momo Effect a workshop. It was canceled. They missed their flight. They had a family emergency in Mexico and missed their flight. So I'm sorry that that had to be canceled at the very last minute. But I hope you did get to see the resolution project, and we're very, very glad to have you with us now. As soon as I get out of the way and everyone gets seated, we'll continue. Thank you.
Check. I'm live. Thank you. All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Who's still sleeping? It's good to see everybody, to be here. You know, my name is Michael Skolnik. I have the privilege to moderate this distinguished panel. I'm born and raised in New York, and I think when you live in New York City, it's amazing to come to this place because you feel like you see the whole world. And to look at your beautiful faces from this angle, it's amazing to see representation from around the world. I want to do a quick activity before we begin, if you would be so kind to let me do something very quickly. As we talk about action, this conversation will be fun, this conversation will be inspiring, this conversation will be about taking our talk to action. But if we could just do a quick group clap to see how well we are as a group. So if you follow my lead, if we all clap together. So I feel like a talk show host. I want to come out here for a minute. And before I know we're on a short period of time. I was like, don't come to me, don't come near me. Where are you guys from? Where are you from?
Rutgers University.
Right here, New Jersey. Rutgers, where are you from, sir?
South Korea.
South Korea, from Rutgers to South Korea. I'm going to the cheap seats. I'm going to seats. Oh, you want to raise your hand and say where you're from? Go ahead.
I'm from China and Rutgers.
China and Rutgers. Who here is from Africa? I saw my Asian friends, Haiti. Yes. Who here is from Georgia? Republic of Georgia, my Georgian friends. Good to see you. How about European? Who's here from Europe? Just you. It's nice to see you. We're happy you're here. So, and over here, Europe over here? New Jersey. A lot of New Jersey. Wow, a lot of folks in New Jersey. So, I'll tell you a brief story, and then we'll get to our lovely panelists. As young people, right, this conversation is about us. So, this conversation is going to be about how these incredible people on this panel have taken their work and taken in inspiration. Right? A lot of us have this light inside of us that burns of inspiration, and taking that inspiration and put it into action. So as we're having a good time, I'll tell a sad story, but about inspiration that hopefully will lead to action. So 2 days ago, a 15-year-old girl was shot and killed in Chicago. For those who don't know, Chicago is a city about maybe a 2-hour flight, airplane ride from here, in the middle of this country, where our president is his hometown. A 15-year-old girl was shot and killed named Hadia Pendleton. 8 days prior to her death, which was just 2 days ago, she performed for our president at his inauguration ceremonies in Washington, D.C. She was an honor student. She was in the marching band, and she had celebrated our president's second term in Washington, and 8 days later she was shot and killed with a bullet in the back at 15 years old. Her name was Hadia Pendleton. I spoke to Hadia's mother this morning, and the work that I do around youth violence and around gun violence, the conversation that I had with Hadia's mother, who never thought that she would lose her child to gun violence, reminded me our work is not done. We have so much more to go before we get there. And whatever there is, right? There could be something different in Haiti, which I've been to your beautiful country 30 times. There could be something different to our friends in Georgia. There could be something different to our friends in New Jersey and at Rutgers. But wherever there is, we know we have a lot of work until we get there. And so there is a lot of talk right now around the world between each other, right? We all have these things, or a lot of us have these things. And it's buzzing as I hold it up. Right? So I can communicate with my friends in China, and I can communicate with my friends in Haiti through these devices. So there's a lot of talk happening. But these incredible people on this panel have taken that talk and put it into action. So when Hadia's mother says, we need help, who's going to help her? Us. This family here. This community of people. This generation of folks who go to work every day for our generation. So I am deeply, deeply inspired by us. I don't know how all of you came here or why you came here, but you're here for a reason. You're here to learn, to listen, to be inspired, and to inspire others. To share your stories with others. So if you will, I'm going to introduce this panel, and then I'm going to sit down and be quiet and maybe play on my phone as they speak and tweet. So I can share their stories with the rest of my 4 followers on Twitter. So, my good friend at the end, Sergio Fernandez de Cordova, is a new friend, but I've known him for a few years now, and he is the chairman of the Public Foundation, which kind of sounds like he's the boss of all of us. So he is the chairman of the Public Foundation. The gentleman to his right is Andrew Mangino, who is the co-founder and the CEO of the Future Project, which sounds like he's the boss to all of us in the future. These guys have great names. Those are amazing. The Public Foundation. To his right is our new friend, Aaron Sylvan, who is I'm going to say the CEO, chairman, and president of the Lemonade Heroes. Who likes lemonade? You're going to learn about his work. I like lemonade. You can raise your hand. Put your camera in the back. You can raise your hand. To his right is our doctor, John Ford. John is the Associate Director of the Institute for Corporate Responsibility at George Washington University. George Washington did not go to that university, but is named after him in the great capital of this country, Washington, D.C., my brother's alma mater. To my right, a new friend who I met today, Rebecca Kantar, is the founder and CEO of BrightCo. Wonderful to see a woman CEO on our panel. Come on, ladies. There's a lot happening around the world of women, and it's wonderful to see her here. And last but not least is our friend Ashok Regmi, the director of the International Youth Foundation, the head of YouthActionNet. So, Sergio, if you will, the question I have for the panel is, talk to us about an indicative moment in your work when you realized that you were taking your talk and putting it into action. And share with us maybe a 3 or 4 minute story about something that really resonates with you to this day about your work.
Thank you, Michael. I guess, my entire life has been a culmination of putting talk into action, which kind of was brought together by the creation of what is now the Public Foundation. Public is spelled with a V. And the Public Foundation's focus is to use media for social impact. Today around the world, there's billions and billions of dollars worth of media that is being created, but it's not being used. Every day we are affected by media. Media influences the way we speak, the way we talk, what we drink, what we eat, what we buy, what phones we use, what communication providers we connect with. And it's, my entire life. I started with a newspaper when I was 12, a billboard company. A few years later, about 20 years later, and after I exited my billboard company, I realized that really kind of putting that talk to action was my basically entire life as an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. Media was my vertical, and media was something that when I had my newspaper, I was donating media only to those that I could tell a story about. I could humanize a product and people and businesses, but not allow them to use the space to make money. Basically use the space to send a message. And then as I evolved and built what some would say a real business, a billboard company, we built a company that became one of the larger players in the US. And one of the things that I realized, my sort of aha moment, in that industry was when I realized that we were making all these companies that were using our space, growing brands. Apple used our space and they became the most popular. They were using, carpeting the entire city with advertising, not just New York, but we were in every major market. Major banks, the Bank of America, created a brand overnight by using our media, out-of-home media that you looked at every single day and you said, yeah, they've been around forever, but no, they haven't. They were a little small town bank about 20 years ago. And really I started to realize that the impact that we were creating for those, but yet 50% of our inventory went by unused. So what I started to do was engage a lot of organizations, social impact organizations and philanthropy and NGOs, and started giving away the space. So, and started to realize that, they too could share that same power that the marketing that Nike, Grey Goose, Apple, Bank of America shared, but they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars for. And I had the ability to really change the way my industry operated, and instead of really using that space and only giving it to those that paid, also donated the space and really actively, not just gave a sign here and a sign there, but I was giving away over $10 million worth of media every single year. And against all my business partners' wishes, but I still went and did it. And I basically told them, buy me out if you don't want me to do this. And ran that business for 10 years. And when I sold that business, I realized again, kind of, how to put that talk into action, because I still felt that that was kind of just talk, because I had the ability now to create real impact, not just in the U.S., but global impact around the world, and had the ability to, and the foresight to execute on this. And sort of, again, that moment was when I decided that it wasn't about me, it was about the vision, it was about institutionalizing this idea and creating a foundation that was focused on making this a reality around the world, and allowing those people that don't have the resources the ability to tap into that media that some of the most biggest corporations of the world have access to. And that was really sort of, and again, I call it sort of the culmination of my upbringing in the entrepreneurial world in the media space, which was, that brought me to that moment, which is, creating the foundation and executing on it.
Just a question. Who here runs a business? Anybody here run a business? Raise your hand high. You can run a business. Be proud. Who else runs? And the gentleman in the back with blue tie over here, Rachel Goldstein. Who here works for a nonprofit or works with a nonprofit? Who here is a student? Fantastic. I am going to go to my friend. Thank you, Sergio, for those remarks. I am not going to go traditionally down the line, so we can make sure everyone is on their 10 toes. I'm going to go to my friend Ashok. A moment, talk to action. You're a indicative moment.
Hello. Thank you for the question. The notion of aha moment, I don't know, it hasn't been any aha moment in my life, but it has been a journey in my life that has allowed me to do what I do right now. I was born and raised in Nepal, and I grew up in a very politically active family where my father spent a lot of time in prison fighting for democracy in Nepal. It is an autocratic rule, and so he was a political member of the party, and my mother was in politics. So from the very childhood, I kind of grew up in a family which talked about social justice more than just ourselves as individuals. So that has kind of been the start of my own journey in life. Came to the United States, did my studies and all that, worked in banking sector. Before actually I came to the US, I started some radio programs in Nepal to focus on social justice issues. But what was interesting to me is that today in our world, we all look at changing societies and communities and taking action without actually looking internally about ourselves, who we as human beings are. And I think that is the hardest thing to do, because I think we are so busy changing outside, we seldom look internally. So I think for me, I have taken a lot of time in my life to understand that, sometimes to fail in that, and bring up again myself in my journey. I've been working in an institution called International Youth Foundation as Director of Social Innovation there for the last 11 years, and I think what keeps me going right now is the fact that I see the kind of drive and passion and idealism and practical aspect of young people around the world to make change in their communities innovatively. And our foundation has focuses primarily around getting young people employed and engaged in the community. And it's a tough work, let me be very honest with you. I get tired, I get exhausted and frustrated just because there is a lack in our world about understanding young people as an asset. Young people are always taken as a liability. But what gets me excited, apart from young people, that drive and passion, I've been working now for, with 700 youth-led social ventures around the world in the last 11 years, is also other organizations and corporations who have gotten an opportunity to work with Hilton, Microsoft, Laureate, Starbucks. These are companies which truly believe in this concept. And when those things happen, those are elements of my work that keeps me going, combination of the passion I see in these young people to create change and ability to garner this kind of interest among other stakeholders, whether private or public sector. So, it's been a fascinating journey for myself. But just one thing I would add to that is I just want to share a quick story. It's not about me, because I've taken this thing on wherever I speak. I would tell her story. I was in Botswana about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was there to speak on a conference like this, and I spoke, and I decided actually I'd get out of the conference hall and see what the young people in Botswana were doing. So I got out of the conference hall, and there were some young kids playing football in the field, and I just sat down, and these were 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and this young girl came and sat next to me. Her name is Buku. I don't know where she is today. And she asked me I was sitting as they were playing soccer, and she came and sat next to me. And the first question she asked me was, "Are you HIV positive?" Which was a pretty shocking question, but that was the reality where she was from. And I said, "No, are you?" And she said, "No, I'm not, but he is, she is." She showed 3 young people who were HIV positive. And for me, you know, the whole stigma against people with HIV/AIDS is an issue that we all know of. So I said, "Is it okay that you're playing with them?" And she said, "You know, my teachers say it's not okay, my parents say it's not okay." But she was pointing to this one particular friend of hers. She said, "You know, she's been my friend since childhood, and actually she was raped, and that's how she got HIV." She said, "You know, I just love her. How can I not stop playing with her?" She said, "Actually, I've asked all my friends to keep on playing with her." So for me, that is the fundamental value of human beings that we sometimes tend to forget in development work. That till the time we cannot change ourselves of our own convictions, like Buku did it. She's not a leader as we think in, you know, big names and terms. She's doing her fight in her own way. So you all sitting here now, we were asked to say, you know, suggest some action plans. All I'm saying to all of you is that you don't need to go and start social ventures and social movements. I think all you need to do first is look within yourself and really be true to yourself of who you are. And no matter what field you are in, political, business, social sector, you can be Bukus in your own worlds. So I really hope you do that, and I'm sure you're already doing that. That's why you're here.
Thank you. Beautiful remarks. Mr. Andrew.
Thank you so much. You mentioned the... Here we go. Hello? Great. Okay. Michael, when you said moments, the first thing that came to my mind was not actually a moment from my own life, but I was looking out at this audience, this gathering of youth, and thinking about my absolute favorite moment in world history. It was in 1966 in South Africa when Robert F. Kennedy addressed the youth of South Africa and called them to action around apartheid. And we saw in that moment the power of what happens when everyone looks within and finds their individual call to action, but also when many people come together. And so I wanted to start with a Bobby Kennedy quote. He said he used to go around New York City a lot when he was senator here, and he said that, you know, some people see things as they are and say why, but others dream things that never were and say why not. Seems like maybe an odd way to start a conversation about, from my perspective, about talk to action with such a quote or an idea about dreaming. But it's at the premise of the organization that I run and co-founded called the Future Project, is that what's missing in education, and what ultimately calls people to act, young people to action most, is the permission to find their passion, to figure out and not see as separate from their education, but the same as their education, to find out what their dream is, what their passion is, what really brings them alive, what their imagination says about the world, that is the future of education. We had been hearing a lot about school reform, the team that started the Future Project, about test scores, about accountability, and it occurred to us and a number of us at the same time that, you know, what would happen if we were to send into schools in America and all across the world someone that we called a dream director, a person in the school who was an entrepreneur, who went into the school, no matter, and this can apply in any environment, on any continent, to go into a school and ask everyone in that school, what do you really care about? What really, really, really brings you alive? And how can we together make this school an exciting, magical, even place to be? And trusting that when that happens, when people get really aware of their passion amazing things start to come out of that. And I'm reminded of the story, you mentioned, Michael, youth violence. There was a student who went through our program. We launched this in 3 cities nationwide last year, and with more than 1,000 people. And one of the students was a special education student in New Haven, Connecticut, named Terrence, who had a D in school and was truant. He was only showing up 2 to 3 times a week. And the dream director came into the school, and she had a conversation with Terrence and said, what do you really care about? He said, I don't know. And they started talking about it, and she said, well, what do you want to talk about all night when you just have total permission to talk about anything? What do you feel, brings you alive, when you just do it for fun? And he said, dancing. And long story short, 2 months later, Terrence had built a dance troupe with more than 25 young people across New Haven to stand up for the youth violence. One of Terrence's friends had been murdered the summer before in another bout of youth violence in New Haven. To stand up to the issue of youth violence and to raise awareness about it and to go into the community and do something about it. He's now building a nonprofit out of that idea, and all of the members of his dance troupe are special education students themselves. And just amazing things are happening. And it all started, as Ashok said, with just him looking inside and figuring out what his passion was. And so when I kind of leave you with a call to action, the most interesting thing about this situation with Terrence and about what he has created is 2 things. One, that there was nothing complicated about it. It was as simple as him sitting down with someone else for 1 day, and then with a volunteer coach and saying, what do I love to do? And then just saying, go, and making it happen. And everything led to there. Every time he shared his passion with someone else, that school came alive until that school was cool again. It was an amazing place to be, and it is to this day, because of people like Terrence, and there are hundreds of these projects coming alive at this one school alone. So, going back to this moment, the day of affirmation, there was this line that Bobby Kennedy said around the power of young people to be ripples of hope. And so I think above everything else, it's just what I've seen through the Future Project and through this idea of an education system that values passions and dreams and action above all else, is that incredible things happen when we share our inspiration with other people, that intersection of inspiration and action are really one and the same. So thank you so much.
Got a mic here? I don't want to talk politics, but we know in this country we got a president who just won an election, and when he campaigned, he said, "Fired up," and the response was "ready to go." So if I say "fired up," ready to go. Fired up, ready to go. Fired up, ready to go. You got me ready. Let's go, Dr. Four. You're next.
How can you follow that, right? Mission Impossible Michael's given me. He's asked a university professor to say something in less than 5 minutes. I don't think I've ever been able to describe or say anything in less than 5 minutes. You ask my family, they'll tell you. But I'll do the best I can. So I do my work in multi-sector collaborations, business, government, NGOs, local communities, religious groups working together collaboratively to try to solve global problems. The aha moment, I guess, that I had helped put together a project with Ford Motor Company, State Department, a local NGO in Chennai, India. Took an automobile with all of its telecommunications inside. We call it wheels on the ground, apps in the air, and took it out to very remote areas outside Chennai to help for women's health. So then you could use the internet to start to transmit and do telemedicine services, right? And when we say remote areas, the car sometimes, of course, had a hard time getting out there. When a woman was about to give birth, they would put her in a hammock, and you would have to walk about 2 hours to get to the hospital, right? So we mean very remote. And in putting the project together and trying to describe it to people, they would just look at me like, what is Ford Motor Company doing working on telemedicine services for needy women outside of Chennai? And it's a really good question. And it made me realize, if you stop and put things together, if you can think of a problem, bring the people together and work on what are they trying to do. What was Ford trying to do? Testing the technology. What was the State Department trying to do? Women's empowerment with Secretary Clinton in charge. The local NGOs were trying to do what they were trying to do. Ford of India was interested in good corporate social responsibility, so they were very supportive of the program. The government, all right, at first a little hesitant, but then bringing such services to women, it was great. But I can tell you, when we started, we had no idea. We put it together step by step. We not only discovered the solution, but we discovered the problem. And so in thinking about that possibility, if that can come together, the amazing potential of working on multi-sector collaborations to solve a problem locally, not through international agencies necessarily, forgive me, I'm sorry, maybe in cooperation with, not through policy, but just because this is what people want to do, bringing together others that may have some mutual interest and trying to solve the problem. One of the biggest stumbling blocks is that we really don't understand each other. Maybe in your own education. If you are studying business, I would generally argue you do not understand government and you don't understand international development and NGOs. You don't know why they're doing what they're doing, you don't know how they think, you don't know what is of interest to them, and usually there's not much interest. And you could say the same thing if you're studying public policy, you don't care much about business. So if we're going to use this kind of a model as a solution, we need to start to be empathetic, is the word we start to use. You have to start to think, what could we do for Ford of India to get them to support the project because we need them to maintain the automobile and put gasoline in it and fix the flat tire? Because if they don't, someone else has to. So what can we do for Ford? What can we do for the local NGO? What are they interested in? What are the local community nurses interested in? What is the State Department interested in? And sometimes when you hear what they're interested in, say in this case, State Department, we had a bit of a tussle for a moment because there was a big moment to make a speech. In India, they wanted to announce the program, and we weren't ready. So the State Department people got upset because we were moving too slow. And we were upset with the State Department because they thought they were being so superficial over a dumb speech. But you have to understand the world that people live in, what's important to them, what they get rewarded for, what they value. If you can do that, then with empathy you can start to add and really come up with innovative kinds of solutions that no one has ever thought about before. So that was kind of my aha moment. So here, leaving because we're supposed to focus on action, is really an invitation. You heard from Amir before, Dossal. He and I are putting together and starting to build a platform, the ideas of a platform of social media that can help bring together the information, the knowledge, the examples, the lessons learned about how to solve problems. It's all out there. It's a matter of putting it together and adapting these to the local situation, where the people buy into it and it makes sense locally, their particular way. And how do you finance it? And what's the business model? And what do you do? The pieces all are out there. So our goal is to bring those pieces together in a social media platform that those who are already doing work can have access to. But those who are in the most remote places in the world, as long as they have one of these, I don't, but as long as you have one, then you can start to find that information. And you can see what other people have done in similar situations, even if you feel powerless, or you don't have any money, or you don't have any contacts. You can start to put it together. So my invitation to you is, as you might, to come help join us, right? Start to think about what is a problem and what can we do to solve it, and how can we bring people together to communicate each other and really identify a problem that's meaningful to all of them so that there's buy-in. And then they start to collaborate in a way, and they have a stake in collaborating. It's not just greenwash. It's not just public relations. Or, if that's all it takes for a business to add some assets or capacity into a project for some disease control project and use their distribution network in order to do it, and all they want is good public relations, sounds great. Let them have it. Why argue about them, right? Why say they should be more, they should care more, they should be like us? If you have empathy, you can put these people together and put these projects together. So when I say I'm inviting you to join us, I mean literally, if after the panel, if you're interested, please come by, drop me your card, I'll be glad to plug you in. But we also need people like you who can help us use the social media platform in a way that's useful. We envision it as an open system, and we need people, visionaries, intermediaries, who can think of ways of using that data and that information in ways that have not been done before. Maybe it's writing an app. Maybe it's a new business. Maybe it's a way. This is what we need your help with. Because the social media that we have today is not the social media we're going to have tomorrow. And as we just figure it out, us old folks who are just barely keeping up and trying to figure out what to do, it's going to move on ever faster, and that's going to be your world. So we need your help to take that technology, that social media, and use it in a way to form meaningful collaborations and to help global problems.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Ms. Rebecca.
Alright, guys. First, I want everyone to take out their phones. I know it's all in your lap anyway, so let's just put them on the table. Second, everyone who's asleep, I promise that action begins with being awake. Right there, I want to tap in. I promise I'll never fall asleep in front of 400 people again.
Wake my man up.
Awesome. I fly lots of red-eye flights. I know you can do it for 4 minutes. Next, the last things you'd probably expect me to talk about are exactly what I'm going to talk about. I want to talk to you about pimps, sex, yard sales, playing soccer, economics, and celebrities to sum up my transformative moments. How many people in this room are 14? Anyone? Awesome. Okay. When I was 14, I didn't know what pimping was. I certainly didn't know what prostitution was. But one of my friends convened a meeting with 30 of us, 30 14-year-olds in a room. It was kind of a madhouse. And we were asked to help fundraise $5,000 for a rehabilitation center that was being built in the Philippines. Does everyone know where the Philippines is? Southeast Asia, kind of a hot spot for sex trafficking. There were 30 of us, yet we had no idea how to raise $5,000. So we told our parents we were going to have a yard sale. Does everyone know what a yard sale is? You collect a bunch of crap and then resell it to the same people usually who put it out there. And we did that, and we raised $6,500 in a day at 14. And from there, we started to think more about, well, you know, this is great. We built this home for 9 girls in the Philippines, but what about the kids in our country? How many of you have ever seen the music video P.I.M.P. by 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg? Come on. Okay, great.
I mean, what she want about me.
Yeah, there we go. So as Michael just did, my friends and I discovered that that video was, 1, quite funny, and 2, really represented how sex trafficking was portrayed in our media. Has anyone ever seen Gossip Girl, 90210, Degrassi, any of these shows? In all of them, there was this common theme of glamorizing pimping. A pimp actually sells a girl an average of 20 times a night. And when we think about that word has kind of become equated with the word cool, it didn't make much sense to me at 15. So my friends and I decided that we were going to speak to 10,000 young people, just like you. We told our parents that we were going to go on a road trip across the United States. Only one of us could drive, but we drove 4,000 miles and we spoke to 400 young people each week for 4 weeks. And from there, spoke to 10,000 young people in the next 3 years. I was just like you guys. I promised that soccer would be a part of this. My main life activity up until age 14 was playing soccer. From there, you know, I learned that what really mattered to me was being part of a team. And if I could be part of a team and address something like sex trafficking, and as I learned more about it, I figured out that I could, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So our next kind of moving from talking, we talked for 3 years to 10,000 kids, was saying, well, how can we make this bigger? How can we shift the economics of sex trafficking? Because if it was too expensive and too risky for criminals to participate in the industry, they'd have no incentive to continue buying and selling sex with kids. Turns out that celebrities entered the equation because we wanted to motivate hundreds of thousands of young people like you to upload these little film clips. And here's your call to action. First, I want everyone to tweet at me as you have questions, because there's one of me and like 400 of you. There's no way we're all going to meet after this. So please, use Twitter. It's on your phone right now. Go ahead and tweet and respond to this. So what we're asking young people to do are to upload little film clips that pressure major airline carriers, so Delta, American, United, JetBlue, everyone under the sun, to screen these little film clips in every flight that say your plane is traveling to a major U.S. city where the average age of entry into prostitution is just 13. And in that city, if you're caught buying or selling sex with a child, you'll face a $100,000 fine and 10 years in prison, or whatever it is for each city around the world. So we want hundreds of thousands of you to help us convince these airline carriers that protecting our young people and the American teenage experience matters more than making more profit from people who are buying and selling sex with children. That's how we move from talk to action over 3 years, and if I could do it at 14, all of you guys can too. Thanks.
Rebecca, what's your Twitter handle?
What?
What's your Twitter handle?
Oh, it's just my name, Rebecca Kantar.
at Rebecca Kantar. Tweet away. Last but not least in the panel, before we leave and talk to our respondent, is Mr. Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Sylvan. I'm not the founder, chairman, CEO. I just call myself the creator of Lemonade Heroes, which started as a book, is now becoming a television series, and can we?
Yeah, check. Right, let's turn that off.
Hi, all right, much better. Lemonade Heroes, which started as a book about entrepreneurship, and is becoming a television series now and a web-based community. It's my belief that if you're a founder, then you're a hero. It takes a lot of courage to be an entrepreneur and to see something that doesn't yet exist and bring it into the world. One quote from David Rose, who's one of the largest angel investors in the city, that I like, is to say, an entrepreneur is someone who sees the world a little bit differently than everyone else. And if nothing else, you see it differently because you see a world in which you have company. But usually it's much, much more. Right? Over the last few years, I have heard thousands of pitches from aspiring young entrepreneurs. And usually the things that they say are things like, I'm going to reinvent the human conversation, or I'm going to change the way all people buy all things. Am I speaking too loudly? All right, sorry. Usually they're trying to do something very grand, or they're trying to say that they're going to bring...
I'll translate. We're going to get your mic. 1 second. We're going to fix that one. Can we turn the wireless mic on, please? Here we go.
Hello.
Even better idea. Switch seats. There you go.
Are we better? Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Right, okay. So I believe entrepreneurs are heroes. They're people who see the world a little differently than others. Not just because they see a world in which they have a business, but usually because they're really trying to change something that's big. And it takes a lot of courage. I'm trying to...
Take the moderator seat. They can't have you in there.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, sit in that seat. It's okay, we got this. You in.
Thank you. Is it me?
I'm leaving. God bless and good night.
All right. Different angle. I was at the TED conference this past year. Anyone here familiar with TED? Fed. Oh my gosh. The whole room. One of the speakers was a neurologist who had a fantastic take on. Are we good? Oh my gosh, great! Hey, finally, again, welcome. Hey, okay. One of the speakers was a neurologist whose study focused on what it is to be wrong, what it means to be wrong about things, and she asked a great question. She said, what does it feel like to be wrong? Can anyone shout something out? What does it feel like to be wrong? I heard embarrassing, humiliating, sad, guilty. Right, yeah. That's what the folks there all called out, and she said, that's not correct. What it feels like to be wrong is it feels like being right, because you don't know that you're wrong, right? You just answered what it feels like to find out that you're wrong. But until you find it out, you think that you're right. And she talked a lot about how imagination works. One quote and message that really resonated with me is that the miracle of your mind is that you can see the world as it isn't. You can imagine what it's like to be some other person in some other place, some other time. And this is a very special thing that entrepreneurs are doing that I think they need credit for and deserve credit for. And part of the Lemonade Heroes project, and the reason why I call people who have the courage to be founders, heroes is because these are people who are trying to do this. In discussing the project with a close friend of mine who's a noted proponent of interfaith tolerance, he said, hey, this is great. You're trying to help people and encourage people to visualize what could be, since it's my theory that more people would be entrepreneurs and would take that dive if they felt like they had the confidence for it. He said, why don't you take a page from Gandhi's book, borrow one of his quotes, with a little twist. Right? The quote, which I'm sure you've all heard, is he implores you to be the change that you want to see in the world, which is a beautiful thought. What my friend suggested, Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld, he happens to be Jewish, but he's the one they trot out on CNN when they want to have a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim in the same room and see what happens. In reality, he's more impartial, I think, to one religion or another than anyone I've ever met. He said, why don't you change Gandhi's quote and instead encourage people to see the change they want to be in the world, right? Help people to visualize the world in the way that they wish that it was. He said, and now it doesn't have to just be about entrepreneurship. Now it can be about social entrepreneurship and promoting goals and values and world change, not just about the business that you'd like to create, but maybe just about the reality that you'd like to create. Anyway, these are all just thoughts. Lemonade Heroes started, as I said, started as a book. We're now developing it as a TV series, and it's becoming a platform online to help young aspiring entrepreneurs to describe what their goals are, what their stories are, and also the struggles that they've been through in the course of trying to come up. Without taking too much more time, I don't know anyone who has started a business that has not, in some way or other, been to hell and back in the course of doing it. And I interviewed someone a few days ago. This woman discovered in the course of a one-week period that she was dumped, had cancer, was pregnant, and would no longer be able to work in her chosen profession, well, for unrelated reasons, all in 1 week. Somehow, she picked it up, pulled it all together. She's now cancer-free, had the child, has a new business in a new line of work, and is recently married. This was over the course of about 3 years. I think she deserves a hand. For privacy, I'm not sharing her name, but the number of stories that I hear like this, and as the Lemonade Heroes project has been moving along, people have been submitting hundreds of entries, and they're all like this. So I think what I'm trying to do is to shed some light on this so that people who run into difficulties, most of being in business is difficult, it doesn't work. And we see what makes us get by is when we find a way somehow to deal with the bad things that happen along the way. We always hear the success stories, but not the tragedies. And I think that by shedding some light on what people have to go through, it'll help others to follow a different path.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And last but not least, our beautiful respondent, who will join us, Ruma Bose, who is a social entrepreneur, an author, and she will share with you her thoughts and her reactions to what she heard, and then we'll end with a few comments after that. The floor is yours.
Thank you so
much.
Can you
come join us over here?
Would you like me to go?
Please.
I'm just going to be, I've taken down
right in front. Yeah, right in front.
Would you like me to come right
Yeah.
You know how to make a brown person blush.
So you can stand right in front. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it right.
You're the expert.
Well, I'd love to thank the panel for their inspiring stories. It's very rare that we get to hear so many wonderful stories from so many people. So I'm going to ask everyone to give them a round of applause. Basically, I tried to take, we've learned and talked about many themes today. The power of storytelling for inspiration, the importance of empathy, how failure is inevitable and is part of the journey, the impact of social media, leveraging your resources and your expertise to make an impact, and being contrarian. And Andrew also said something that really struck me, which is the importance of the intersection of inspiration and action. So I'd like to tell all of you just a very quick anecdote of where I learned how to take something from inspiration to action, which is I had the great privilege of working and living and being with Mother Teresa for a year. And what I learned in that year was that anybody who has a very simple vision with a very big idea can truly make a tremendous impact in the world. And Mother Teresa was an Albanian woman who came to India and had this vision to help the poorest of the poor. And in 30 years, she was 18 years old, just like many of you in this room. And in 30 years, this woman with this simple vision ended up having a small school in the slums of Calcutta, and she grew that to over 600 missions in over 100 countries with over 1 million people working with her. She raised and deployed over $1 billion in capital. She was known all over the world, and even though she's been gone for 15 years, her organization has still grown and is making a tremendous impact to this day and growing 25–30% year over year. And what she taught me was that take your inspiration and be really simple and systematic about how you turn that inspiration into action. So what I wanted to do today, if it's helpful, I'd like everybody to take their pens out because I thought about all these inspirational stories that we have today. How can we then, as individuals, go home and act? And so, as they were talking, I wrote some notes. So the first thing, as you all know, what fuels advocacy, what fuels activism, what fuels action is inspiration. And when we're inspired by someone or something, that's when we have this desire to act on it. And it's important that we listen to that calling really carefully. And the inspiration can come from different sources. And as we heard today, you know, it can come with your own personal experience with an issue. It can be somebody, it can be an injustice that you've seen. It can be somebody that you really respect who's called you to act. And it can be simply just your desire to have a better world. So what I would encourage all of you to do if you're inspired today is take a pen and write down 3 issues or problems that you feel connected to. And don't worry about how much you know about it. Don't focus on, you know, bringing it down to I want to help X. Really just think about it in general terms and focus on something that personally affects you, impacts you, whether it's directly or indirectly. And once you write these 3 problems down, the next thing you need to do is identify 3 issues that within the framework of those problems that you need to get to know. You need to do your homework about those issues. So read about it. Talk to as many people as you can and explore it. And this is truly the most important thing whenever you get inspired to act on something, is just go out there and do as much research as you can so that you know everything that you possibly can about it. And then try to answer 3 key questions for those problems, which is, what is the root cause of the problem? Who do you need to help or benefit to make things better? And how do they need to be better off? What benefits them?
Say that one more time.
So the first is, what is the root cause of the problem that you are trying to solve? And the second is, who do you need to help or benefit to make things better? And how do they, the beneficiaries, need to be better off? What benefits do they need to have? And once you have a better sense of what benefits you need to provide to solve the problem, that's when the fun begins, because that's when you can start acting on what you can actually do to act. And what you need to ask yourself is, what can you do with what you have where you are? We're all in different places in our lives. And that's sort of what Sergio was talking about, where he had this epiphany, where he said, I've got all these resources in front of me and these people I have access to, let me go out and do something with it. So what you need to look at is who are the people who can support you? What are the skills that you and your supporters have? What are the organizations and businesses that you're connected to? And what are the networks of people that you have access to, both professionally and personally? And don't underestimate the power of combining all of those 4 things together. And now that you have 3 solutions you can implement, the question is, which one do you start with? And that's only something that you're going to know, because your gut and your instinct will lead you to the question and the problem that's most fired up in you. And when you've decided on the solution that you want to move forward with, give it a name and a tagline. Have a short sentence that says exactly what it is so that it's come alive. And then map out your journey and understand what are all the actions that you need to do in order to get to your solution, and make sure that those actions are repeatable and scalable. And the important thing after that is to make sure that you're really making an impact. So don't focus on how much money have I raised, how many page views do I have. It's really about those people who are going to benefit by us solving this problem. Are they better off? And just like you are inspired to act and do something, it's really important for you to then go out there and start inspiring other people, because that's how impact is multiplied. And so if this is helpful, I think that we'll be here year after year. Many of you will be up on stage sharing all of your inspirational stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to end. Thank you, Ruma. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Before we do that, this panel will hang out for a while. As the doctor said, he's asked you to join him. I think we all would invite you to join all of our work. We're going to hang out. We got information, business cards. The bottom line is this. This room right here, in this room, these folks in this room, we have an incredible, incredible amount of opportunity to do incredible things in our lives. There's a lot of folks who are giving us information today, inspiration, some actual tools of what we can do. Let's take advantage of these things. So during this break, talk to each other, talk to us, tell us what you do, ask for advice. You're here in New York, some of you guys from New Jersey, welcome to New York. The rest of you, make yourself at home. But enjoy this break for 10 minutes. Come talk to us, introduce yourselves. We're very, very thankful to Amir.